blessing he's commanding when we're together, the oil flowing. Let your people come together in unity. What a blessing he's commanding when we're together, the oil flowing, descending from the heavens like the morning dew, pouring on our heads, precious soul from you, falling from the mountain, water fresh and cool, running down the beard, and we know it's true. How pleasant, how good, how beautiful it is. How pleasant, how good, how beautiful it is. Let your people come together in unity. What a blessing he's commanding when we're together, the oil is flowing, descending from the heavens like the morning dew, pouring on our heads, precious soul from you, falling from the mountain, water fresh and cool, running down the beard, and we know it's true. How pleasant, how good, how beautiful it is. 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 How pleasant, how good, how beautiful. How pleasant, how good, how beautiful it is. It's falling down my beard, running down my garments.
Welcome everyone to this week's Torah portion, Bamidbar. It comes from Numbers chapter 1 through 4. Bamidbar means in the wilderness. And we know that physical or natural Israel begins to take shape and is organized positionally and functionally once they're led out of Egypt. They will find that they will move as one body as they follow the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. Physical, natural Israel precedes spiritual Israel born from above. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 46 through 49. The spiritual, however, was not first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, earthy. The second man is the master from heaven. As is the earthy, so also are those who are earthy. And as is the heavenly, so also are those who are heavenly. And as we have borne the likeness of the earthy, we shall also bear the likeness of the heavenly. You know, Yahuah told Pharaoh, "Thus said Yahuah, Israel, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn." That's taken from Exodus chapter 4, verse 22 and 23. So we know at the time of the first Exodus, Israel is set free, yet Israel is in its infancy with much to learn as they were coming out of Egypt. There is nothing like being in the wilderness, Bamidbar, to realize that you need to stop doing stupid stuff. It is a time that you listen intently to the one with the best survival skills, or you pray and hope you recall everything you watched on So You Think You'd Survive? You realize you are in dire straits and that you must do what may seem impossible or die. That was pretty much the literal case for the Israelites after the sin of the golden calf. Under the book of the law, it was a do or die imposed law to spare their very lives. The book of the law would be a harsh schoolmaster, but if they would listen, mature, and obey the master survivalist, Yahuah, they would fare well. If not, they could literally die, and die very quickly. Today in the fake news media, we have reported from London. It reads, 2 future monarchs are set to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II at a special concert in front of Buckingham Palace on this day, this Shabbat, this Saturday in their book. And it just so happens to be the 3rd day of their Platinum Jubilee extravaganza, marking her 70 years on the throne. In this scene, Fighter jets perform a fly past over Buckingham Palace during the Trooping in the Colors in London, Thursday, June 2nd, 2022, on the first of 4 days of celebrations to mark the Platinum Jubilee. The events over a long holiday weekend in the UK are meant to celebrate the monarch's 70 years of service. And then later it says the 96-year-old, of course, that's significant too, 9'6" or 6'9", monarch, again, reminds us of the monarch butterfly, isn't expected to attend the nighttime outdoor event with rain in the forecast. Prince Charles and Prince William, the Queen's son and grandson, are scheduled to address a live audience of 22,000 people and millions more watching on television. The event featuring Diana Ross, Queen plus Adam Lambert and Alicia Keys will take place in a temporary amphitheater built around the Victoria Memorial outside the palace. So this is the worldly feast and gatherings. Their feast worship Mother Goddess worship. They worship the Queen of Heaven. And this is just one ritual being performed by the globalists on this long weekend. Israel, however, is no longer in its infancy, as we are reading in Numbers. True Israel, those born from above in Yahushua HaMashiach, is rising. The one new man is rising, and we are the one new man that stands against the beast man rising. In the end of days, the saga between the battle of Esau, those not regenerated in Yahushua, and Yaakov, Israel, his firstborn, will come to an end with the stone kingdom, Yahushua, and the 144,000. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 through 12, and Matthew opened his Torah portion back in 2014 with these words, these scriptures, and they're very essential for us to hold on to and worth repeating. For I do not wish you to be ignorant, Paul said, brothers, that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and all were immersed into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of their spiritual rock that followed, and the rock was Messiah. However, with most of them, Elohim was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness. And these became examples for us, so that we should not lust after evil, as those indeed lusted, and do not become idolaters, as some of them, as it has been written. The people sat down to eat and to drink and stood up to play. We just saw images of that, did we not? Neither should we commit whoring, as some of them did. And in one day, 23,000 fell. Neither let us try Messiah, as some of them also tried and were destroyed by serpents. Neither grumble, as some of them also grumbled and were destroyed by the destroyer. And all these came upon them as examples, and they were written as a warning to us, on whom the ends of the ages have come, so that he who thinks he stands, let him take heed lest he fall. The significance of 70. We know in counting the Jubilees, you can look at them in groups of 40. 40 would represent Adam to Abraham, another 40 jubilees from Abraham to Yahusha, another 40 jubilees from Yahusha to the end, equaling 120 jubilees. But you can also group them differently. You can group them with 50 jubilees from Adam to Moses and 70 jubilees from Moses to the end. 70 is also significant in the 70 weeks written in Daniel, and we've studied that in the past. 70 appears in 96 verses, and there's 97 matches in Esword. We know in Exodus 1:5, and all those who were descendants of Yaakov were 70 beings, as Joseph was already in Yisra'ěl, Egypt. Exodus 15:27, and they came to Elim, where there were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. You see, the enemy is always counterfeiting all things of Yahuah. The reason being because the enemy wants to deceive the world. And in Exodus 24:1, and to Moses, he said, come up to Yahuah, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall bow yourselves from a distance. In Numbers chapter 7, verse 19, which we should get to probably next week, he said, he brought his offering, one silver dish, the weight of which was 130 shekels, one silver bowl of 70 shekels. So that was one of the offerings brought, one silver bowl of 70 shekels. And in Numbers chapter 11, we read of another account, and I'll bring up all those scriptures together. When Yahuah said to Moses to gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel. If we look at Numbers 11:24 through 27, and Moses went out and spoke to the people the words of Yahuah, and he gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people and placed them around the tent. And Yahuah came down in the cloud. You see, Yahuah has entered our atmosphere many times before. Make no mistakes. He was in the pillar of cloud. He was in the pillar of fire. He enters into our atmosphere anytime he wishes. And Yahuah came down in the cloud and spoke to him and took of the spirit that was upon him and placed the same upon the 70 elders. And it came to be when the spirit rested upon them that they prophesied, but did not continue. However, 2 men had remained in the camp. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the other, Medad. And the spirit rested upon them. Now they were among those listed, but did not go out to the tent, and they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and informed Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. This is a type and shadow in the end of days of the 2 witnesses, when yet once more his spirit will be poured out on the 2 witnesses, and more than likely the 2 assemblies of Philadelphia and Smyrna. The Israelites are preparing to break camp and leave the wilderness of Sinai. Israel is very mobile. Wherever his spirit goes, they go. That's how it was then, and that is how it is now. One of the first things Yahuah did when he brought the Israelites out of Egypt was to replace their slave mentality with a warrior mentality. He did this for us as well. Yahushua came to set the captives free, and we are free indeed. Yet that is when the real battle begins. When we were blind and deaf, we weren't a threat to the enemy. And the enemy, we know, doesn't waste time throwing stones at dead birds. But when we know Yahuah, everything changes. We now have spiritual hearing and eyesight, and that is a real game changer. For we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in heavenly places and rulers of darkness. A famous line in a 1988 movie titled They Live was when an old lady encountered the main character of the show, and he was wearing his special sunglasses while shopping in a store. And he sees that this old lady is one of them. And the lady cries out, "I've got one that can see." And so it is. You either have spiritual hearing and spiritual eyesight through being born anew, or you don't. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 1, verse 1. And Yahuah spoke to Moses in the wilderness, Bamidbar of Sinai, in the tent of appointment on the first day to the second new month in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male, head by head, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army in Israel. Number them by their divisions, you and Aaron. And a man from every tribe should be with you, each one the head of his father's house. In Exodus chapter 40, verse 17, we read, and it came to be in the first new month of the second year, on the first day of the new month, that the dwelling place was raised up. So in this same time period, in the second year since their exodus out of Egypt, in the first new month of the second year, on the first day of that new month, the dwelling place was erected. It was raised up. And we just read that on the first day to the second new month in the second year, that a census was to be taken for the army of Israel. And when we get to Numbers chapter 9, we see that they're going to celebrate the Passover in the first new month of the second year after they came out of the land of Egypt. So the dwelling place was raised. They're going to observe the Passover in the first new month of the second year on the 14th day, listed there in verse 5. And also we see that this is the time period that Yahuah approves and institutes the ability to perform the Passover in the second new month if some of the children of Israel become unclean from touching possibly a dead body, or if they're far away on a journey, they can still perform it. So that is also listed in Numbers 9. And in Numbers 10, chapter 11, we will see that it came to be on the 20th day of that same month in the second year that the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place of the witness. So my point is this: in the second year, the first month and the second month are extremely active. In Exodus 19:4, we read, "You have seen what I did to the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." Yahuah had brought the Israelites out of Egypt on eagle's wings and brought them to himself. He brought them to Mount Sinai and proposed to his people at the appointed time of Pentecost. And eagle's wings is not only connected to the first Exodus, but also the greater Exodus, as we have read before in Revelation chapter 12. Mount Sinai is campsite number 11. And they stayed encamped there for almost a year. And it was a little over a year since their exodus out of Egypt. And as we just read, they will depart in the second year, the second month, and the 20th day. Each campsite recorded in Numbers chapter 33 brings lessons that we all must learn for spiritual maturity. These lessons were not just for them, but for us, especially as the end of days approach. So they were to take a census of all males fighting age 20 years and older from every clan, with a head representing each division of their father's house. And the second column below in this chart compares those clans to the 144,000 listed in Revelation chapter 7. We see the tribe of Levi is exempt in the warrior census in Numbers chapter 1, but they are not exempt in Revelation chapter 7. The tribes we do not see accounted for in Revelation 7, the tribe we do not see accounted for in Revelation 7 is the tribe of Dan. So in Numbers chapter 1, verse 44 through 46, we read, "These were those registered whom Moses and Aaron registered with the leaders of Israel, 12 men, each one from his father's house. And all those that were registered of the children of Israel by their fathers' houses, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army in Israel. All those that were registered were 603,550. I recently came across a blogger that had come to a similar conclusion as myself about why the tribe of Dan was not listed in the list to your right in Revelation chapter 7. I want to go over just a few of those excerpts I took from his blog post. According to these verses, there will be at least 24 thrones for judges. And he's referring to Revelation chapter 4 and Revelation chapter 5. I have wondered if the tribe of Dan will act as judges when Yahushua returns, since that is their gift and responsibility. Yahuah will be the ultimate judge, though. In Matthew 19:28, we read, Yahushua said to them, "Truly I say to you, in the new world, when the Son of Man will sit on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or children or lands for my name's sake will receive 100-fold and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first. And we know the tribe of Dan headed up the last quadrant in the wilderness when they would move out. The last quadrant was the rear guard. And in Luke 22, verse 28, you are those who have stayed with me in my trials, and I assign to you, as my Father assigned to me, a kingdom, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And in his conclusion, he wrote, Dan's tribe is the only tribe not mentioned as being sealed in the book of Revelation, chapter 7. And it just might be because his tribe's responsibility is judgment. Dan's testimony below is one of repentance and warning to his descendants. And he closed with saying, I look forward to Dan's tribe providing justice for all the tribes of Israel and catching that serpent in its tracks. In Genesis 49, verse 16, we read, Dan rightly rules, or the tribe of Dan rightly judges his people as one of the tribes of Israel. And we know Samson was from the tribe of Dan. It goes on in in Genesis 49, verse 17, Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backward. Now, that sounds pretty rough, but that sounds pretty cool to have the tribe of Dan leading the rear guard for our protection. So those are some pretty good qualities in a battle. So that's something to be mindful of. So again, the first will be last and the last first. And Dan's quadrant was last in the wilderness. They were the rear guard. And Yahuah himself refers to himself as our rear guard in Isaiah 52:12. For you shall not come out in haste, nor go in flight, for Yahuah is going before you, and the Elohim of Israel is your rear guard. Yahuah Yahusha is the Aleph and the Tav. He is the first and the last. And the lead quadrant was led by Judah, and the last quadrant was led by Dan. So there were to be men representing each clan. They were leaders of the clans and the 4 living creatures. The east quadrant was led by the lead banner of the lion. And Nahshon, son of Amminadab, was that leader of that tribe of Judah. And so forth. Our scriptures today list each man that led each tribe. So Judah quadrant was on the east. On the west, we have Ephraim's quadrant. And those are the names of the leaders of those 3 tribes. And then south, we have Reuben. And those are the names of the leaders of those 3 tribes. And north, we have Dan. And those are the leaders of the tribes of that quadrant. Now, I emphasize the lead banners because they are significant, and they are not only seen in numbers as the tribes were being organized, but we also see these images and representatives of the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle in Ezekiel. And we also see them again in Revelation chapter 4 and 5. In Revelation chapter 4, we see that these living creatures have 6 wings. And I proposed, and I've proposed in the past, could it be that those 6 wings, 3 sets of wings, would represent each tribe behind the lead banner, and you would only see the head of the lead banner? So in my understanding, reading scripture, when you read about the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle, we should see that as a body of Israel, representative of Israel. But they're not only representatives of Israel, the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle are also representative of Yahushua HaMashiach himself in the Gospels. So everything was orderly. And we see here in this diagram, their movement, Judah would be the lead quadrant, and they were camped east of the dwelling place. And it would move clockwise, grabbing the south, Reuben, that quadrant, then west, Ephraim, that quadrant, and lastly, Dan, that quadrant. So that's how the quadrants would move out. And then we'll look at later how the dwelling place would fit in there and the holy set apart objects. We also see Nahshon, son of Amminadab, is the leader of the clan of Judah. And we know and have studied before that Nahshon was in the genealogy of Yahushua, and Ram brought forth Amminadab, and Amminadab brought forth Nahshon. And that also is in the lineage of David. And Jesse brought forth David. We also have discussed in the past where the blending of the tribe of Levi and Judah took place. We read about that in Exodus chapter 6, verse 23. Aaron, being from the tribe of what? Levi, took to himself Elisheva, daughter of Amminadab, sister of Nahshon. So Elisheva was a member of the tribe of Judah. So we see the blending of the tribe of Levi and the tribe of Judah. So notice as we proceed through Numbers and eventually Deuteronomy, that Yahuah not only speaks to Aaron after he was ordained and consecrated as high priest of the Aaronic Levitical priesthood, but Yahuah continues to speak to Moses of the Melchizedek priesthood. Also remember that Yahuah would no longer speak to Aaron until after Moses ordained him because of the sin of the golden calf. And we know that prior to the sin of the golden calf, Yahuah spoke to both Moses and Aaron. After the sin of the golden calf, these two priesthoods would run parallel. The royal Melchizedek priesthood would run in a denigrated position to the Aaronic Levitical priesthood, but would still be very active in many respects. The Aaronic Levitical priesthood would reign in the elevated position until Yahushua HaMashiach, the Melchizedek from the tribe of Judah, would restore the Melchizedek priesthood back to the reigning position forever and without end. The function of all tribes, including the tribe of Levi, will be revealed as prophecy unfolds. So we see that after the sin of the golden calf, there is a tandem priesthood. After the sin of the golden calf, the tribe of Levi stepped forth in repentance and service. Now Aaron and his sons would be ordained and consecrated by Moses, and thus the Aaronic Levitical priesthood was birthed. They would administer the imposed book of the law, which was Plan B. It was Yahuwah's permissive will. It was not his perfect will to spare the lives of the Israelites. And we know during that time period, 3,000 died. The book of the law was a harsh schoolmaster to teach a rebellious, hard-hearted people. Plan A, on the other hand, the book of the covenant, was Yahuwah's perfect will and had been broken because of the sin of the golden calf. They had committed adultery. The Melchizedek priesthood would now run parallel in a denigrated position to the Aaronic priesthood until Yahushua would come. They would not be a nation, that is a mistype. They would now be a nation with a priest instead of a kingdom of priests from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. The Melchizedek priesthood predated the Aaronic priesthood. We clearly see that the Melchizedek priesthood predated the Aaronic Levitical priesthood. This is important to keep in mind because Aaron was once under the Melchizedek order along with Moses as they worked hand in hand with Yahuah. They served Yahuah in leading the people out of Egypt to Mount Sinai. They witnessed Yahuah's presence by the pillar of cloud by day and pillar of fire by night. They were both present with the people as Yahuah descended on the mount with fire, thunder, and smoke. They both were present with Yahuah when Yahuah proposed in Exodus 19, verse 4 and 6, our very marriage ketuvah. The book of the covenant existed from Exodus 19:4 through 24:11. Moses and Aaron both heard all the people accept his proposal. All were present when Moses did the blood ratification. And most importantly, Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, along with the 70 elders, had the covenant confirming meal with Yahuah in Exodus 24, verses 9 through 11. By listening to his voice and obeying his covenant, they were on their way to being a kingdom of priests, a holy nation, a set apart people for him and with him. So there we have it in Exodus 24, 9 through 12. Moses went up, also Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, the 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the Elohim of Israel, and under his feet like a paved work of sapphire stone, and like the heavens for brightness. That description is also communicated to us in Ezekiel chapter 1. Yet he did not stretch out his hand against the chiefs of the children of Israel, and they saw Elohim, and they ate and drank. And in Exodus 19:24, we have an account when Aaron too goes with Moses. And Yahuwah said to him, "Come, go down and then come up, you and Aaron with you, but do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to Yahuwah, lest he break out against them." So this was the scene as the people accepted the marriage ketuvah. becoming a kingdom of priests after the order of Melchizedek. This is a slide I have referred to often. We know that a blood ratified covenant cannot be added to or taken away from. And we know the two blood ratified covenants that Yahuah has made with us. One was at Mount Sinai, there revealed in Exodus 19:4 through Exodus 24:11, because there was a proposal, there was acceptance, there was blood ratification and a covenant confirming meal. But we also know that it was broken with the sin of the golden calf. Adultery was committed and 3,000 died. And Moses intercedes, and to spare their very lives, Yahuah gives them the imposed book of the law, which exists from Exodus 24:12 through Deuteronomy into the beginning chapters of Joshua. And that would be in place until Yahushua would come and give us the new blood ratified covenant confirming gospel. And this blood ratified covenant was sealed with his precious blood. He proposed to us, you can accept or reject Yahushua HaMashiach. When you accept him, you're being washed by the blood of the Lamb, washed by his precious blood, and we partake of the covenant confirming meal at Passover. So it all began from Genesis with the preachers of righteousness, starting with Adam. And we know the promise was given to Abraham in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3. We know that Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest to the Most High El, blesses Abraham with bread and wine. That's the first mention of bread and wine. We know that Abraham asked for a guaranteed promise in Genesis 15, verse 8 through 18. And we know that the promise and the proposal given was achieved 430 years later at Mount Sinai. So this is just a graphic depiction to really show the big picture, if you will, because it began with the preachers of righteousness and the Melchizedek priesthood. And after the sin of the golden calf, the Aaronic Levitical priesthood was elevated and birthed, if you will. And the Melchizedek priesthood ran parallel to it in a denigrated position. The royal line that David was very much a part of, as well as Solomon and Josiah. And then after Yahushua was born under the book of the law, was born under the beast kingdom of Rome, but he came to once again elevate the Melchizedek priesthood back to its reigning position and take his seat at the right hand of the Father, thus making us a kingdom of priests for those that have entered into his new blood ratified covenant from every tongue, tribe, people, and nation. Now the tribe of Levi will be part of that conglomeration of every tribe, tongue, people, and nation under the order of Melchizedek. So everyone will have a function. Though there were many elevation and denigration within the Aaronic Levitical priesthood, there were only two transferences between the Melchizedek priesthood and the Aaronic priesthood. They occurred when Moses transferred the priesthood to Aaron and his sons. After the sin of the golden calf, everything changed. That was Yahuah's permissive will, not his perfect will. And secondly, we see the transference between the Aaronic Levitical priesthood and the Melchizedek priesthood when John the Immerser transferred the priesthood to Yahusha. So let's recall some key points to this priesthood transference back to the order of Melchizedek. Yahusha comes to be mikvahed by John the Immerser, the true high priest of the Aaronic Levitical priesthood, who had to actually function out in the wilderness due to the corruption in the temple system. Secondly, John the Immerser was hesitant at first to mikvah Yahusha, knowing he was greater. But then John comprehends that Yahusha's request was to fulfill the priestly transference process under the book of the law, which was required under the book of the law, back to the Melchizedek. So Yahusha had to follow every jot and tittle because he was born under the book of the law, as he was ushering in and elevating back to the reigning position, the Melchizedek priesthood. We know Caiaphas puts Yahusha under oath to determine if he was the son of Elohim, and therefore Yahusha himself verbalizes who he is so as not to violate the book of the law. That was another standard. He had to verbalize it, not only come from Caiaphas's mouth, but Yahusha had to verbalize it. The installed high priest Caiaphas, after Yahusha replies to him, accuses Yahusha of blasphemy, though Yahusha told the truth. Caiaphas then tears his high priestly robe, thus disqualifying himself to serve as high priest. At this point, with the book of the law transference, legalities being fulfilled between the true reigning high priest, John the Immerser, and Yahushua HaMashiach, who was born king and completed his priestly mikvah transference, Yahusha would now be in a position to officiate over his own crucifixion as high priest. Yahusha functioned in dual capacity as not only king and priest of the Melchizedek order, but also as the sacrificial offering, the perfect Lamb of Elohim. In the process, he not only redeems mankind, but he also redeems the land and all creation. It wasn't just about us. He fulfilled all the prophecies that were spoken of his first coming, inclusive of the fact that they cast lots for his seamless woven priestly garment. If the soldiers would have torn his priestly garment, he would have been disqualified. All the priestly offerings and the typology of the tabernacle system were wrapped in Yahushua HaMashiach. It all served as a schoolmaster, a tutor, taking them back to elementary school to teach them all about the coming Savior. In Mark chapter 14:58, we read, "We heard him saying, I shall destroy this dwelling place that is made with hands, and within 3 days I shall build another made without hands." Yahushua was a tent made without hands. Yahushua came in the likeness of flesh. He was from heaven and was 100% Yahuah in Son. He was born king and he presently reigns. He is seated at the right hand of Yahuah. Yahuah sits at the right hand of Yahuah, for they are one Echad. He is our high priest after the order of Melchizedek. He offered his precious blood to make full atonement once and for all on the heavenly altar. He has once again proposed to us his bride. For those that accept his new covenant proposal, they become his kingdom of priests of every tongue, tribe, people, and nation, a mixed multitude. They become his set-apart people, his holy nation. Now we stay in covenant with him. We walk and follow his ruach. We continue to mature in the sanctification process as we keep his prophetic moedim. These are our wedding rehearsals with our groom, who is soon to return. Numbers chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. And Yahuah spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, the children of Israel are to camp, each one by his own banner, beside the sign of his father's house. Let them camp around the tent of appointment at a distance. This scripture tells us Israel is defined by banners. And the four lead banners for each quadrant were the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle. Therefore, these lead banners represent and equate to all 12 tribes, with Yahuah Yahusha as the head. This is important to remember about the four living creatures. From this point forward, the four living creatures are not the dead beast, but are the living creatures. Colossians 1, verse 18, and he is the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that he might become the one who is first in all. Because in him, all the completeness was well pleased to dwell. We dwell in him. Without him, we can do nothing. He is the vine, we are the branches. And through him to completely restore to favor all unto himself, whether on earth or in the heavens, having made peace through the blood of his stake. Yahusha tore down the partition of separation. He is the door that was opened in Revelation 4:1. Keep in mind the characteristics of these creatures reside in Yahusha himself. Now, we've established they represent the 12 tribes of Israel, but they also represent Yahusha. In the Gospel of Matthew, it emphasizes Yahusha as the Messiah and King of Israel, which would equate to the lion. In the Gospel of Mark, it portrays him as the suffering servant of Israel, which equates to the ox. The Gospel of Luke portrays him as the perfect man, the man. And John, the Gospel of John, portrays him as fully divine, the eagle. Numbers chapter 2 records the tribes encamped around the tent of appointment. There are 3 groupings of tribes in each quadrant: east, south, west, and north. 3 tribes: east, 3 tribes, south, 3 tribes, west, 3 tribes, north. The lead banner of the east camps was Judah, totaling 186,400. They would depart first. The lead banner of the south camps was Reuben, totaling 151,450. That quadrant would depart secondly. The lead banner of the west camps was Ephraim, totaling 108,100. They would depart third. The lead banner of the north camp was Dan, totaling 157,600, and they would depart last, totaling 603,550. We will incorporate the dwelling place and the Aaronic Levitical priesthood and the Levites later. In chapter 3 of Numbers, we read about the sons of Aaron. And these are the generations of Aaron and Moses when Yahuah spoke with Moses on Mount Sinai. And these are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests, whom he ordained to act as priests. And Nadab and Abihu had died before Yahuah when they brought strange fire before Yahuah in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So Eleazar and Ithamar acted as priests in the presence of Aaron, their father. So in Numbers chapter 3, it reviews the sons of Aaron and the duties of the Levites. It acknowledges that Nadab, Aaron's firstborn, and Abihu, the second eldest, had died before Yahuah when they brought in strange fire. We learn that Nadab and Abihu had no children, so Aaron's other sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, acted as priests in the presence of Aaron, their father. So within the Aaronic Levitical priesthood, we will see elevations and denigrations also just within the Aaronic Levitical priesthood between the Eleazar line and the Ithamar line and eventually the Zadokite line. But as stated before, there was also an elevation and denigration between the priesthoods, the Aaronic Levitical priesthood and the Melchizedek priesthood. Numbers chapter 3 goes on to tell us the duties of the Levites encamped around the dwelling place. So we had the 4 quadrants that we've discussed in detail, and we see the heads that represented the 4 quadrants: the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle. But that's the quadrants. Now we're going to take a look at the tabernacle and the duty of the Levites, the Kohaths, the Gershons, the Merarites. And we see Moses and the priest that served in the Aaronic Levitical priest were also camped on the east side of the dwelling place. So in Numbers chapter 3, verse 25, it speaks of the sons of Gershon, and they camped westward behind the dwelling place. So here's Gershon, and this is the west side of the dwelling place. And the duty of the children of Gershon in the tent of appointment was the dwelling place and the tent with its covering, and the covering of the door of the tent of appointment, and the screens of the courtyard, and the covering of the door of the courtyard, which is around the dwelling place and slaughter place, and their cords, according to all its service. And there were 7,500 of the Gershonites. In Numbers chapter 3, verse 31, we read of the sons of Kohath, and they camped on the south side of the dwelling place right here in front of Reuben's quadrant. And their duty was the ark and the table and the lampstand and the slaughter places and the utensils of the set apart place used in the service and the covering and all its service. Then we have the Merarites, which were camped north in front of the quadrant of Dan. Verse 36 and 37, we read, and the appointed duty of the children of Merari was the boards of the dwelling place and its bars and its columns and its sockets and its utensils and all its service, and the columns of the courtyard all around with their sockets and their pegs and their cords. The Levites had some pretty tough jobs to do. Then we also see Moses, Aaron, and his sons are camped on the east side of the dwelling place. And the chief leader at this point is Eleazar, because he took the place after the death of Aaron, his father, because Nadab and Abihu had already been consumed by Yahuah. The chief leader duties to be chief over the leaders of the Levites, with oversight of those who guard the duty of the set apart place. And they camped east side before the dwelling place, before the tent of appointment, guarding the duty of the set apart place and the duty of the children of Israel. But the stranger who came near was to be put to death. The Israelites' movement was based on when the pillar of cloud moved. When the pillar moved, Israel would move. When the pillar stopped, Israel would stop. Therefore, wherever the spirit of Yahuah led, they would follow. Israel, born from above, is very mobile. Then and now, everything in the wilderness was a type and shadow of the original setup in heaven. Yahuah showed Moses how he was to make and do everything. Everything on earth was a type and shadow of things in the heavenlies and things to come prophetically. So here is a sequence of how they would move. And movement is an intricate part of Israel, because we are connected to Yahusha. He has sent us the comforter. Wherever he is, we are. He told us he would never leave us or forsake us. We are moved and led and guided by his Ruach HaKodesh. And the wilderness encampments were moved and guided by the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. And when that pillar took up, no matter whether it was day or night, the camp moved. And that's what we are to do. That's how we are led. So the first quadrant would head out, the quadrant of Judah. And then the dwelling place that would be taken care of by the sons of Gershon and Merari would follow that quadrant. Then the quadrant of Reuben would move out. And in the very middle would be the Kohathites that would break down the set apart objects that had already been covered by the Aaronic Levitical priest. They couldn't even be in the dwelling place while all of those things were being covered. It had to be done exactly. And they could not move those set apart objects until after the Aaronic priest had covered them and collected them properly. Then after the set apart objects were gathered by the Kohathites, then the quadrant of Ephraim would follow. And then lastly, the rear guard quadrant, Dan. In Numbers 3, verse 39, we read, all the registered ones of the Levites whom Moses and Aaron registered at the mouth of Yahuah by their clans, all the males from a new month old and above were 22,000. However, if you add up all the numbers that we just spoke of, it actually totals 22,300. So there are a couple of commentators that gave their thoughts on how that discrepancy occurred. I'll just read one of them. I'll read Dr. Kennicott's mode of reconciling the discrepancy, however, is the most simple. He supposes that an error has crept into the number of the Gershonites in Numbers chapter 3, verse 22, where instead of 7,500, we should read 7,200, as the Kaf, which stands for 500, might have been easily mistaken for Resh, which stands for 200. So I just wanted to bring that little tidbit to your observance. And then we have a transaction that takes place in Numbers chapter 3, verse 40 through 51. And Yahuah said to Moses, register all the firstborn males of the children of Israel from a new month old and above, and take the number of their names. And you shall take the Levites for me. So Yahuah wants the Levites to himself. I am Yahuah. Instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the livestock of the Levites, instead of all the firstborn among the livestock of the children of Israel. So there's been a transaction, there's been an exchange here between the firstborns and the Levites. And Moses registered all the firstborn among the children of Israel as Yahuah had commanded him, and all the firstborn males by the number of names from 1 new month old and above of their registered ones was 22,273. And Yahuah spoke to Moses, saying, take the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the livestock of the Levites instead of their livestock, and the Levites shall be mine. I am Yahuah. And the ransom of the 273 of the firstborn of the children of Israel, who are more than the number of the Levites, you shall take 5 shekels for each one, head by head. Take it by the shekel of the set apart place, the shekel of 20 gerars. And you shall give the silver, the ransom of those who are in excess among them, to Aaron and his sons. And Moses took the ransom silver from those who were over and above those who were ransomed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the children of Israel, he took the silver, 1,365 pieces, according to the shekel of the set apart place. And Moses gave their ransom silver to Aaron and to his sons, according to the word of Yahuah, as Yahuah had commanded. So Yahuah takes possession of the Levites in exchange for the firstborn males of the children of Israel. The total firstborns were 22,273, which was 273 over the total of Levites. Therefore, Yahuah had Moses pay a ransom fee to Aaron and his sons of 1,365 pieces, which equals 273 times 5. In Numbers chapter 4, 1 through 20, the duties of the Kohathites under the direction of Eleazar are given. Now, what I want us to take away from this is that each of us each of us will be assigned duties. And those that are in Yahushua HaMashiach are in his kingdom. And this Shabbat study has taught us that he is very precise. He is very orderly. And those that draw close to him, he draws close to them. And our position of closeness to him will be determined by what we accomplish in this lifetime. How much do we comprehend of his word? How much do we thirst after him? How much do we strive for understanding who he is and what his desire for us is to fulfill, especially in these last days? So I took some excerpt readings for a review of Numbers 4. But even though it's talking about the Kohathites then and all these different divisions and all these different roles, think about what Yahuah has planned for you, for your purpose, because each of his people are important and each serve a purpose.
The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Take a census of the Kohathite branch of the Levites by their clans and families. Count all the men from 30 to 50 years of age who come to serve in the work at the tent of meeting. This is the work of the Kohathites at the tent of meeting, the care of the most holy things. When the camp is to move, Aaron and his sons are to go in and take down the shielding curtain and put it over the Ark of the Covenant law. Then they are to cover the curtain with a durable leather, spread a cloth of solid blue over that and put the poles in place. Over the table of the presence they are to spread a blue cloth and put on it the plates, dishes and bowls, and the jars for drink offerings. The bread that is continually there is to remain on it. They are to spread a scarlet cloth over them, cover that with the durable leather and put the poles in place. They are to take a blue cloth and cover the lampstand that is for light, together with its lamps, its wick trimmers and trays, and all its jars for the olive oil used to supply it. Then they are to wrap it and all its accessories in a covering of the durable leather and put it on a carrying frame. Over the gold altar they are to spread a blue cloth and cover that with the durable leather and put the poles in place. They are to take all the articles used for ministering in the sanctuary, wrap them in a blue cloth, cover that with the durable leather and put them on a carrying frame. They are to remove the ashes from the bronze altar and spread a purple cloth over it. Then they are to place on it all the utensils used for ministering at the altar, including the fire pans, meat forks, shovels and sprinkling bowls. Over it they are to spread a covering of the durable leather and put the poles in place. After Aaron and his sons have finished covering the holy furnishings and all the holy articles, and when the camp is ready to move, only then are the Kohathites to come and do the carrying. But they must not touch the holy things or they will die. The Kohathites are to carry those things that are in the tent of meeting. Eleazar son of Aaron, the priest, is to have charge of the oil for the light, the fragrant incense, the regular grain offering and the anointing oil. He is to be in charge of the entire tabernacle and everything in it, including its holy furnishings and articles. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "See that the Kohathite tribal clans are not destroyed from among the Levites, so that they may live and not die when they come near the most holy things. Do this for them." Aaron and his sons are to go into the sanctuary and assign to each man his work and what he is to carry. But the Kohathites must not go in to look at the holy things, even for a moment, or they will die.
So the duties of the Kohathites were under the direction of Eleazar. And now we will look at the duties of the Gershonites and the Merarites under the direction of Ithamar in Numbers chapter 4, verse 21 through 33.
The Lord said to Moses, "Take a census also of the Gershonites by their families and clans. Count all the men from 30 to 50 years of age who come to serve in the work at the tent of meeting. This is the service of the Gershonite clans in their carrying and their other work. They are to carry the curtains of the tabernacle, that is, the tent of meeting, its covering and its outer covering of durable leather, the curtains for the entrance to the tent of meeting, the curtains of the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle and altar, the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard, the ropes and all the equipment used in the service of the tent. The Gershonites are to do all that needs to be done with these things. All their service, whether carrying or doing other work, is to be done under the direction of Aaron and his sons. You shall assign to them as their responsibility all they are to carry. This is the service of the Gershonite clans at the tent of meeting. Their duties are to be under the direction of Itamar son of Aaron, the priest. Count the Merarites by their clans and families. Count all the men from 30 to 50 years of age who come to serve in the work at the tent of meeting. As part of all their service at the tent, they are to carry the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, posts and bases, as well as the posts of the surrounding courtyard with their bases, tent pegs, ropes, all their equipment and everything related to their use. Assign to each man the specific things he is to carry. This is the service of the Merarite clans as they work at the tent of meeting under the direction of Itamar son of Aaron, the priest.
Now keep in mind, in the book of Numbers, we see the Levites encamped around the dwelling place. But now we live under the time period where there was a change in priesthood that brings with it a change in law. And we now serve Yahushua HaMashiach as our high priest. And the priest that will function under Yahushua HaMashiach after the order of Melchizedek will be representative of every tongue, tribe, people, and nation, not just the Levitical tribe. So this was a type and shadow of our day in the prophetic future, of us dwelling around Yahushua HaMashiach and ruling and reigning with him with our various functions and in our various positions for 1,000 years and forevermore. So in the closing verses of Numbers chapter 4, verses 34 through 49, we see the counting of the Levites. So this is another counting. Before it was 1 month of age and above. Now we're seeing the counting of the Levites 30 years of age and above, even to 50. And they total 8,580 beings, which equates to 39% of the Levites from when we previously counted 1 month old and above of the 22,000.
Moses, Aaron and the leaders of the community counted the Kohathites by their clans and families. All the men from 30 to 50 years of age who came to serve in the work at the tent of meeting, counted by clans, were 2,750. This was the total of all those in the Kohathite clans who served at the tent of meeting. Moses and Aaron counted them according to the Lord's command through Moses. The Gershonites were counted by their clans and families. All the men from 30 to 50 years of age who came to serve in the work at the tent of meeting, counted by their clans and families, were 2,630. This was the total of those in the Gershonite clans who served at the tent of meeting. Moses and Aaron counted them according to the Lord's command. The Merarites were counted by their clans and families. All the men from 30 to 50 years of age who came to serve in the work at the tent of meeting, counted by their clans, were 3,200. This was the total of those in the Merarite clans. Moses and Aaron counted them according to the Lord's command through Moses. So Moses, Aaron and the leaders of Israel counted all the Levites by their clans and families. All the men from 30 to 50 years of age who came to do the work of serving and carrying the tent of meeting numbered 8,580. At the Lord's command through Moses, each was assigned his work and told what to carry. Thus they were counted, as the Lord commanded Moses.
As we continue in the book of Numbers, there will be additional preparations needed before the Israelites break camp in Numbers chapter 10. We will see them observe Passover in Numbers chapter 9, and we will see the institution of the second Passover. Life in Yahuah is cyclical, and in each cycle, he matures us more and more. These 42 Israelite encampments recorded in the book of Numbers, chapter 33, are 42 lessons that we too must learn in preparation for our greater exodus. We follow in the footsteps of Yahusha from moed to moed, feast to feast, and camp to camp. The bottom line is this: the greater priesthood has always been the Melchizedek priesthood. The lesser priesthood will be blessed by the greater priesthood. Everyone will have their function, and our desire is that our function places us in a position closest to Yahuah. Shabbat Shalom.